Hi everyone, I'm going to do a little tutorial here showing you how you can use deformers, in this case the bend deformer on an object and have turbulence work with it. I'm not going to look at any real settings with turbulence. Quality is going to be bog standard low. We're not interested in the look of the turbulence. I just want to see how we can get it working with an animated deformer. So let's get on with it. I'll just create a default cylinder. I'm going to be bending it, so I'm going to want to give it quite a few height segments. And let's stick a bend deformer on our cylinder. We'll get all this set up before we get the turbulence. I want to keep the bottom still, so I want the y-axis and keep it limited. The reason being, if we have it limited, see how the bottom stays still? Whereas if I had it at unlimited, see the bottom squidges up. I don't want that. Right, that looks fine. Okay, let's set this to 200. Give ourselves something to play with. Right, okay, let's start it at animate it right. Let's start it here. And this is just messing around here. Do what you want with yours. Just to give it enough so we can get some decent movement in the turb, so we can see the turb moving. Okay, and let's animate the angle as well. Let's have it moving that way. This is all thrilling stuff, isn't it? This animation at the cutting edge. Oh, that looks good enough to me. Okay, we'll create a turb container. Put it on quality, though we're not really bothering with the quality. Let's get it so we make sure we can keep our sim in. It's probably best to try and keep everything in some form of uniformity, so 1000. I mean, these are ridiculously high, but as I said, we're not looking at quality. We just want to make sure that everything stays within this sim. We'll just check that. Yeah, it's all definitely in. Okay, what I want to do is we're going to make this editable. When you make cylinders editable, I don't think it happens with many other things apart from cylinders. These polygons at the top, the cap polygons, are separated from the main body. Although you can't see it, but if you were to select them, you could move them. So what you need to do whenever you do it with a cylinder and you make that editable is functions optimize, and it will weld these points. So it will weld the top to the body. Okay, it's something a lot of people forget to do, and probably doesn't make a lot of difference. But I always do it by habit. Always weld it on. We should still have the same bend, yep. But because we've now got an editable object, I can do a. Let's hide that. I can do a poly selection because we only want to emit from a certain point. So let's make sure we've got only select visible elements off, so I can go right through the object. Let's give it a decent amount. Okay, I think that's my settings. I think are default. The normals come up. I always think it's handy to have that on anyway. I won't go to it. You can switch that off if you want. Right, we've got our selection. We'll actually make a selection set selection. I won't even bother naming it, we've only got one selection set. Okay, now we can add our turbulence tag, and we'll restrict it to the selection, so we just drag and drop that in. Okay, so now we're only going to be emitting from these top parts, and set the cache up. I said in earlier tutorials, mine's already set up. By the way, if you don't know what's going on with turbulence, watch the earlier tutorials, especially the first one. That'll tell you what's happening. I'm not going into it here because the point of this is to show you how to get deformers to work. So hopefully you should have watched at least the first tutorial getting started. There's my default cache. There's the cache set up, and I'll leave that at default. Let's just give this smoke. We don't really need any fuel. Give it plenty of smoke. And temperature, I want it rising up and buzzing around, so we'll give it temperature. I'll buzz on some divergence and normal force. These aren't necessary, this is just to get things moving. With the divergence on, I have to remember in simulation to switch on divergence. That's really, I think, all we need to do here. We've got the editor preview on density, smoke shaders on density, and we're not bothering with fire. It's not what we're interested in this at the moment. Right, let's do a quick test. Run the sim and we'll click that on. It's on quite low settings. Well, it is and it isn't. Because of the way I resize my sim, it's actually gone up quite high because I left that on quality. So let's stop that. Let's bring it down to its default. Okay, and I'll resim. We'll get something really fast. Now, bear in mind the cylinder is moving, but the smoke isn't. There's a slight problem, I think, with my visuals on this because of I think it's to do with Windows 7 and the cards. That I'm getting some cut off here, or what appears to be cut off. That's I don't think is a turbulence thing. I think that's purely Cinema 4D and my card. I might have to adjust the clipping planes or something, but let's not worry about that. What we are worried about is why is this not following the selection set. Well, the way to get that to work, or one of the ways, the way I've worked out, there might be several other ways, is we want to cache this bending. Okay, so it's not relying on the deformer, because turbulence isn't actually seeing the deformer. And one way to do that is to add a character tag point cache. Now, I'm not 100% sure if you don't have the character module, whether you've got this or not. I've got to find out about that. And if you haven't, then there might be another way of getting around this. But we'll add a point cache in. Click on store state. Let's try it with use deformer off and calculate. Oh, it went a bit frantic. Now I'll turn the bend deformer off. Yeah, and we've now got, although you can't see it because of the clipping, we've now got this moving without its bend deformer. In fact, I could, in theory, even delete the bend deformer and it should still work. Yeah. Okay, now because it's cached, it's not relying on the bend deformer. Turbulence should, fingers crossed, there you go, it's actually now recognising the actual movement of the cylinder. Okay, because the cylinder itself is moving, it's not the bend deformer moving it. We actually cache the points, and that basically let's just do a quick render on there for you. that basically is it covered. There's not really a lot more to say. Um, Obviously this isn't showing you how you would really use it in real world, but at least it's showing you how you can get around that problem with turbulence not actually seeing bend deformers. Um, Very low quality, as I say. We're not interested in the quality, we're interested in seeing the movement. I'll just let this render a bit and pause and we can see what it's doing. While it's doing its thing, I'll show off my Noctua cooling. I've got one new Noctua, the DH14. It's a beast, it's massive, but it's doing its job. It's quite pricey cooler, but it comes with two fans, and I think this day and age decent cooling fans are going to knock you back about 16 quid a shot, so there's even more perhaps, so there's like at least 30-40 quid just in the fans alone. But it's keeping my temperature. I'm overclocked up to 4 gigs. I'm not on 100%, but I'm getting temperatures here of 63. These processors I think are set for 100. That's a distance to the limit. People like to say, well, don't go above 75, 80, try and keep them around 70 for safety. And this is bubbling away at 63, maximum 64, so it's keeping my processor nice and cool. I'll just pause and show you what temperature it gets to when it's doing the sim. Okay, finished rendering. As I say, quality is really low, but what we're after looking at is the movement, and it's moving, it's following. If you find when you put your resolutions up that it's getting a bit blocky, you may want to look into timing and bring the time step size down. Moving it up will make it less accurate, and you might get the staggered patterns that are common with things like thinking particles. But it will render faster, higher, and bring it down. I think 1 is the lowest it can go to. I think you can go below. No, 1 is your lowest. It increases the render times, but helps to smooth out simulations where you've got fast moving objects. As I said, I'll show you some temps. Here we are idle at 39, and I'll just set it to run. In fact, yeah, let's bring the time step down, see what difference that makes. Alright, yeah, I'm not on 100% either. And let's just see, that rendered in 10 seconds. Let's put it back at its default. See what it does now. Nine seconds. And let's get it right up. I think you can see it's more blocky. It's difficult to tell. Didn't really make a lot of difference. I think on this low level sim it's not going to make a lot of difference. So I'll just recap on what we had to do there. I made the cylinder. I put a bend deformer on it to get it bending. I made it editable and set my selection tag for the turbulence, and put that pulley selection tag into there, set to emit just from there. Could have done that afterwards, but you have to make it editable for two reasons. One, if we want it just emitting from the top, we need the pulley selection tag, so we have to make it editable. And two, if we're going to use this point selection tag, point cache tag, it's not going to cache unless it's got points, and it has to be editable for that. So simply I animated it with the bend deformer, or I animated the bend deformer, had it moving around, and put that cache on, store state to get it going, and then calculate. Simple as that. I had used deformer off. Simple as that. If I turn that off, it shouldn't work. Yeah, and if I turn it back on, it's allowing it. You need to read up on the manual Cinema 4D, find out a bit more about all this. You can save that to disk, I assume. Load and save, that's what I'm assuming. I'm not going to go into that. To be honest with you, I haven't really used this much before. So we've put the tag on, we've cached it, we've stored it, calculated it, and then I could remove the bend deformer, and then we're back to normal, basically dealing with a straightforward turbulence simulation and all the parameters you want to deal with. That basically is this very quick tutorial. This might come in handy for some people, it might not. I hope you enjoy these tutorials. Please remember that I am absolutely skint now. I haven't bought this new computer. The one reason I bought the computer really was to try and get some better sims going on Turbulence, because I just needed the power to do it. And this thing rocks. It's a i7 930, but it's cost me a bloody fortune. It's no good for thinking particles, because thinking particles is not multi-threaded. It's good for renders, but dynamics and all sorts of other stuff aren't multi-threaded. The great thing about Fume is it is multi-threaded, so it's making use of all the cores. Because I spent so much money and I'm skint, I would hope and love that people could help to donate a bit of money to the site, help me pay for this bloody stuff I've bought, and also help me to buy more plugins. I want to start buying some other plugins and start making more tutorials on them. I want to build up my app base to make tutorials about as many things as possible. So please, if you're feeling generous, contribute, and I can keep this thing going. Okay, thanks a lot everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. Any comments, please make them on the forum. Thank you.